Okay, and we're ready for this interesting restorative setup. Two blankets at the back. The top one is a little bulky, so you might use an extra blanket or another towel. Have plenty of these types of props, which could be towel or blankets that you can smush down. So probably having some extras near your yoga space is helpful. The bolster is across the mat, it's horizontal, and you're gonna sit yourself in front of it. Okay, so sit so that the seat is on the ground. You have a couple blocks, and I would just slide the blocks in and tilt them. They're not flat, that would be a little pointy. I think some people find that's okay to have them flat, but I like support, and that's because I anticipate a lot of back motion, but I don't want you to work your back so hard. I want you to work your breathing muscles and let that be what's helping stretch out your body parts for this pose. So get a belt, buckle it up so it's in a loop. And when you place the loop over your head around your waist, reach the belt to the feet, which I hope are together. And when you slide the belt around the top of the feet and scoop it up, you might pull the buckle part close enough. I think it could be, well, I would just put it to the top of the thigh. I don't think you want it around your back. I like to consider options that I didn't before in the moment. But the belt is really snug. It's not so snug that you'll lose your circulation, but it will help you calm down in the pose, the tension. Unless again, it's too tight. There's a fine line. Now, when you do lower back, have your sand. If you have a ball, keep it nearby. But I would lower back with the sense of elbows back, chest, center, and up. This is like a good starting plan here. Now there's this abdomen that kind of balloons in the moment before you lower back. So you want to increase the circulation in the ribs. So as you lower down, you might bring the blocks so they're a little bit higher. You might have to loosen your belt. Mine's just too tight. Okay, remember it's around the back, the eyebrows of the buttocks. So it does feel a little bit funny. Sometimes the belt situation on this is kind of silly. Okay, now when you lower back, head to the blankets. You've got to have something under your head that supports you entirely. So if this is a slight support, bulk it up. Whether you need to holler to someone in your house to get you another towel or blanket, or you can do the best you can. Yeah, I can kind of modify this one. But you know what you do with blankets, you smush them down anyway. So if you think you're rolling it up higher, it's probably gonna flatten down to where you started. Okay, sand is of course an option. It is pretty intense for this one because it's already enough going on, but I like the idea of, and this is where you might go, oh, I need that towel under my back. So if you try without the towel and you scooch your seat a little bit away from the bolster, then you'll have this tone in the stomach, like this line of stretch. And so that's kind of nice too. It gives us nice stretch in the core. Okay, now open out the arms so that there is an actual shift of the shape to feel the circulation in the chest and the ribs equally. Yeah, if your blanket is kind of in a funky roll up, you're not so sure it's right. The most important part is, does it feel supportive? And as the neck releases back and the arms spread open, relax your hands and use the awareness of inhale to filter the air in through the nostrils. And as the circulation makes its way out, starts to release what no longer serves you, letting it go. And just keep building on the moment of centering into this practice. Even if there's sounds you can hear from the weather outside or anything such as that, you can let that be kind of a backdrop that's helpful. But you're the star right now in the feature. So as you inhale, filter the air, feel that large sensation of breath. And then making that exhalation exit out of the mouth. And of course, if at any time the positioning of the belt and the knees is just too much on your, what you think is too much on your back, you can always unbuckle and just shift the bottom of the feet to touch the ground and the knees to kind of perk up. It's a perfect option that still helps you stretch the chest and open the lungs. So feeling the breath spread in the body. Let your eyes close. Inhaling for 4 to 5 counts at your own pace. And then next time you follow the ends of the exhalation, noticing when you take the sand off, if you're using it, we'll all meet without any sand on our ribs. If the exhalation has a different tone to it. You might feel like it's kind of rigid, and when the chest is lifted this high, the exhale is quite challenging. So you don't have to focus on whether you're doing it correct or not. The emphasis and how you are furthering your pranayama practice is becoming more aware of the insides and the movement insides with your breath. The inside character of breathing. Let the feet be comfortable. They don't have to jam together. The balls of the feet, the toes could relax. And then reach the arms across the chest. So whichever arm goes on top is perfect. Give yourself a bit of a hug. Let it be pretty casual. So it's just a comforting embrace of the upper back. And then as you bring your arms back, elbows out, interlace your fingers at the roots and turn the palms inside out and press the hands towards the ceiling. Okay, and let's let this be a very improvisational self-search, okay, with the arm movement. So feel when your hands are still together, move back towards the chest, and then pump them back up. And you do this a few times. Now, of course, it's improvisational. So you might scoop the hands downwards and then up towards the ceiling. You might bring them back overhead, but do so that it's moving the ribs on the sides and the back. We're pretty good when we're laying back on props to get the front of the ribs moving, but the back, they get seized up. So try to get that movement. We're going to add to it. You might even jostle the arms a little side to side when the arms are straight-ish, and just feel how that shifts the side plate of the ribs. Keep the ribs, the breathing muscles strong, resilient. And then lower the hands down and unbuckle and slide the belt. I would just slide it away as the knees approach, pointing up, and the bottoms of the feet to the ground. I would slide the belt out from underneath you and place it beside you. Okay, let's get a hold of, you could use a block or a ball for this. They actually are both, I think, equally good on this one. So what you'll do is you'll push into your feet and you'll little itty bitty lift of the buttocks off the ground. Like, it's so minor, but you do feel it's so small that you're not completely resting your seat on the floor. But you've got all these props under you to kind of help you out. Okay. Now, you'll put the ball next to the upper outer left thigh. It's actually could feel like it's right next to your hip bone. Okay, and this will feel like, oh, I could actually scoot it underneath me almost. So make sure it's really there. And then when you sit down, you'll lift up the right foot. Now, find that it's a little easier for me if I'm like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a 1/4 inch that I'm up, that I still kind of graze the floor. I'm not completely committed. When I lift up my right foot to balance, I push into my left foot straight down, cross the right ankle to the left knee, and then sink back your sacrum. Sacrums are sinking. And lean the legs to the left, but don't pull on your knee at all. Okay, your block might be in the way. There might be some distractions. Open the chest, but right now I want you to keep the sacrum area, the lower back kind of squared. Okay, the only thing that's kind of moving, right, is this leg piece, the right leg. The ribs are squared off here, is the bolster. But let the arms be free, opening. This should be slight. It shouldn't be the farthest you can go. It's pretty subtle. Now, if you're antsy to get a hold of your knee with your left hand and just feel what that would be on your hip, you could. It's not going to harm you because your body is in a fixed place, right? You can't slip any discs here. You're all fixed. Yoga fixed. Getting your yoga fix. Okay, come back in center, and once you uncross, I want you to push down into the feet, both of them. Take the ball out from that left side and then scoop it over to the right. I kind of put it a little bit under. Left foot up, and oops, I tilted my hip. So be a little careful here about your hip movements. Square it off, everything's square. It's good to be square here. And then lift up the left foot like you're trying to kick a ball up towards the ceiling, kick it. And then left foot crosses the ankle to the right knee. It's hard to do this without staring at your legs, but you can't really because you're back. So you're just kind of trusting your process of being kind of backwards, almost upside down. Weight down into your hips. Left side, it tilts over towards the right. Got stuff in my way. And then arms open. It's trusting your breathing muscles. So it's a little bit on edge, I can tell on this one. But I'm trying to keep it square in my ribs, like not tilting and twisting. Open the chest. If the legs are shaky, it's only temporary. But you don't have to stay as long. And you could try holding onto your knee with your right hand, your left knee. You kind of feel, is that helpful? Do you like that sensation in the hip, or is it just as well to be a little less sensation? Trust the process. And then bring the knees back center. And now you'll push down through both feet. You lift up your hips, you put the ball aside and just slide. Where's a block? Slide a flat, lowest setting block under the back of your pelvis. Oh, that feels so good. Have that support now. And then let your back of your pelvis relax into the block. So it might have a tilt to it, a little angle. Be sure your blanket's not very high behind you. I would flatten that top one out completely. Even if you can't tell if you're doing it right, just flatten it down. Okay, and open out the chest. Take one last position here. Stretch down through the feet. If you happen to be lucky to touch a wall, it could be nice. You can feel that resistance into the bones. If there's no wall to touch, still try to reach your feet towards the base of your mat, flexing, toes up. You can stretch out your toes, wiggle them. I guess when toes wiggle, noses wiggle. Okay. And as the legs, the back of the knees might kind of sway down, I want you to kind of try to pull above the kneecaps with your muscles. See if you can isolate a little bit. I know, and the chest really opens on this one. Okay. Now, as you slide the feet back in, push down into what? Into your bolster. So you're sliding the weight back. So when I do that, I'm actually pushing into my feet to get my weight back into my bolster. And then we're actually gonna flip. So we're gonna roll left and then just push the block overhead, just bring it back over to your blankets and then keep it rolling to the left and add, if you have a ball or a block on the inside of that right leg, and I believe you're set up for side sage kind of nicely here. So the blankets could stay the same. You don't have to change them very much, but you might want the top blanket a little bit puffed up. You might have your block behind you on the blankets. And then if you have sand, grab it, place it on your side. And yeah, the ball might be helpful lower on the leg for some of us, kind of where the knee pivots down. We're trying to fill the gap of that circulation. So when you lie into the left side, you're actually stretching your right side. That's the focus here. So you're not done until you get all your props kind of sorted out and then lie into that side. Now, one thing we learn with hip stability is that mobility is helpful for it as well. So even though if I turn a little bit open to the ceiling and stretch my arm either over or on the bolster, I gotta be careful that my head is relaxing down. And this can start to feel some circulation now in a different layer of the ribs. It's almost so much easier than the first pose, huh? So lengthen out according to your capacity. And that's a huge part of the practice, is just to notice what feels like you're gaining some awareness in your body. So that might be limiting your range of motion for today. It might be leveling out from the middle ribs, expanding above towards the armpit chest. You have to really use the inside motion of breath. It's not stuck in your nose. It's definitely not stuck in your head. So using the breath movement to massage inside the body, the breathing muscles, the diaphragm movement, the psoas, and most importantly, I think, for me, is the digestive tract and the vital organs. I think they're all pretty vital, but noticing where the extremities connect into the breathing area. So for instance, my arms, I feel more connection there with my breathing. It's just kind of closer to my ribs. But the legs are important too. So the left leg curled under, that's helping stretch out your back, lower back. It also puts a little pressure into the left side of the waist, right in towards the spleen. So kind of stomach, spleen, meridian. And then the right side, clearly it's the liver. So this right leg makes a difference, right? If I stretch it back before I come out of the pose, you might just get a little more length of this right leg. Even if your arm is tired of being overhead, let this right leg reach down and back. If you've ever done hip strength exercises in some in PT, there's oftentimes you lean this way and then you're going to do that abduction, right? You're going to move the leg back and up. So it's not too different with the direction of the hip joint here. Okay, so let's come out with, get rid of the sand first. And we're gonna go over to table pose. So that's cat-cow version. So you might get moved quickly, but I would just take it kind of slow, be a little passive about the movement. Shift, so you're about ready to crawl. And then when you move to hands and knees, feel if you can let your knees separate just as wide as your hands would be. I don't know if you think about that much in this shape. I think it's usually the opposite. The knees are close, a little closer in than the arms are because of the movement of the shoulders, but it makes sense to take them out. So top of the feet rest, back muscles are kind of in a flexing, bit of a curling motion. Fingers spread out, palms press, arch the spine. Inhale. And exhale, round the back, feel your head, really shift your chin towards your chest. Inhaling, arch. Exhaling, round. Okay, inhaling, arch. Okay, take a moment when you let your body shift back to neutral, toes under, and lift up the knees and alternate bending. And the bending is probably in the legs, not the arms so much, but some of us might start to bend the elbows just to keep ourselves in the lift and hip position. So feel what you do with movement so you can stay afloat. I mean, usually you do movement so you can balance too. You know, a little bit of movement from one leg to the other helps you stay up. But for this one, it's helping you stay upside down. Okay, reach the heels up. Put your head nod a little side to side if you would like. These are all suggestions. And then as the heels reach back, you're trying to get your hips to lift up. So there's always further to go. Heels reach back and down, hips lift up, up. Arms have to stay forwards. And then lift the heels and lower down the knees. And then we'll actually, let's do this. Let's turn the bolster. And now you may be facing the other way because your whole screen scene is kind of interesting in Zoom sometimes. So you're going to turn the bolster so it's straight underneath you, and now you have this whole lane of travel. So you're going to reach your forehead down, but what I want you to do is not jam your face into your blankets. I want you just to hover and slide the arms back so they're besides your legs, besides your hips for some of us, right? Some of us, the hands aren't down by the knees. And let the toes hook under and lift the chest. If you're next to a wall, well, that makes it easy, but if there's no wall, you'll have to use your back a little more. But massage into the digestive tract here. Oh, this is a bonus. Unless you're full. Okay, lift the chest. Try to get the shoulders to move down towards the arms, into the arms. Okay, it only will get easier now. All right, now bring the palms down, and as the fingers spread out, see if you can let the toes relax, straight back and down. Elbows by your sides. Lift the chest, and now push to come towards an up dog. Really use the bolster on this one. It's kind of weird, isn't it? If your knees aren't jamming into the ground, to feel that little bit of buoyancy. Okay, now if the rear muscles aren't doing anything, like if this area is like just kind of sleepy, you might work on feeling the tops of the feet kind of stretch back. And don't make this really challenging on your glutes. Try to work on the hip flexor stretching, the arms working. Okay, and then relax the knees and shift back, turn the bolster. So we're going to go to side sage with the right hip down. So kind of set up your stuff. So you got your nice bolster there across, and now you're going to lean to your right hip and take your time to let the shape form so that you feel the sides working. Now I get kind of stuck on my props and how I use them. So I kind of forget about my body shape sometimes. So you've got the ball. We're so prop oriented on this one. So when I lean into it, I want my right leg close to the bolster to help my back stretch. Okay. Then I try to get my ribs. You're kind of pinning your liver down here. Okay, make sure you're breathing so the organs aren't shocked here. And then place some sand on the side. Now it could be straight through the length of the side. It might be across. Yeah, and sort out where the opening is. That felt really fun there. I just kind of span my arms out like there's no floor, but I got stuck with the floor. So I'm trying to work on this broadness in the chest, even when I'm on my side. You won't be able to sleep very well. If you do that, you won't fall asleep in the pose, that's for sure. But span out the ribs, let your left arm stretch over. If you have ambition to touch a block, well, that's fine. If you're going to let go of ambition here and focus on feeling, and if one side is tighter than the other with your breath, that gives you some information, right, about not necessarily that something's going wrong in your body or your lymphatics, but it's more your respiratory. So you're working on seeking some balance. Just notice we're trying to find balance, inner balance. So the arm could be over, it could be on the side of you on your sand, on the bolster across. Your head does not have to tilt back like mine, looking towards the screen. You could let your head rest so you're on the side of your head. Feel the breath. Notice where you can use the bolster for a little bit of resistance. Also the sand. Right? My breath isn't really felt much with the sand right now because my sand is mostly on my hip bone, not so much on my breathing muscles, but when it presses down into the body, it helps my focus move towards my breath. Not spending energy on keeping this lower body still and fixed. It's already there. So let yourself arrive in the next few moments on centering the breath in the ribs. If you can reach and it doesn't hurt, like you really truly don't feel any pins and needles, then it's okay to do it. But if there is starting to become like an isolated area that's sore, doesn't feel okay, offer yourself either movement with the left arm or lower it down. Now, as you slide the sand away, let's move the sand back to the left so it drops off behind you. And then when you rotate to the right, try to let your right elbow push down and then help yourself to rotate left. You're going left with your waist over, and then you're going to lift and kind of turn towards the back. Okay? So if you've got a block behind there, move it to the side of the bolster. And let's turn our blankets. I can't have this, the fringe is all directions, but let's see if I can manage that challenge. I'll leave it. Okay, so I'm going to pull the blankets in next to my bolster and sit on top of the bolster. You can sit on the bolster and then move the blankets, or do the more challenging way of squirming around without sitting on a bolster. Okay, you want to be pretty centered on your mat. So if you have no mat behind you, you'll probably push yourself a tiny bit forward. So you have mat at the back. Doesn't have to be much. Okay. All right, let's adjust our legs. So we'll take the right leg. So you want to let this leg reach out to the right side. Left leg bends and positions towards the right leg. It doesn't need to touch the leg. That's not that important here. But this might be one that you have a ball under your left knee. If, let's say the knee is not touching the ground, it's probably a good idea to put some under it. It's not an ideal pose to try to force your knee. So if you're angling your knees often, right? If you sit for a long time, kind of cross-legged, you'll notice, then I don't know, I noticed my knee doesn't like that for a long period. So using something underneath it, there's no reason you should keep jamming the joints up. Okay. It's not required to live. Well, some moments you're stuck with it and we're sitting. Okay, so let's work on this. Let's get our belt, and I want you to make a loop that's small. So if you have a D-ring belt, this can be a little bit of a bother, but if you've got a buckle belt, it's kind of easy peasy, isn't it? Sorry for that loud sound comes through on the screens, I know. Okay, so little loop. Okay, place it under your right foot and stretch out the leg again. Now, if the leg is, you can feel the back of the knee kind of sway down. You could put a block under it. You could, if you have another ball, you could put that under it. You could put a blanket, because we don't need the blanket for a while. You could place it under your knee. But if you stretch the leg farther out, it might work. So let's see. Let's take our belt behind us and we'll hold it with the left hand and we'll reach it back. Now I'm on the idea of I don't want to pull my shoulder joint, even though it feels like, oh, I get a nice stretch. If it's turning in, it's just not good, right? If it's rolling in and I stretch back. So try to get that left shoulder back. And that's it. And then my ribs, I can feel that shift in the rib cage. Pretty subtle. Right hand to left knee. And it might be a little struggle for you to sit up with this with your natural back arch. Okay, this ball feels great. So turn the waist to the left. Whoops. If your left shoulder rolls in, you gotta like kind of peek down at it with your peripheral vision here. Okay. And now maybe it's a good idea for us to let our eyes relax and kind of scan where the extremities are working, right? The right foot pushes into the belt. I pull with my left hand. So there's resistance. And if my shoulder doesn't like this at all with pulling, I could bend my left elbow and kind of reach closer towards my body with my left elbow bending. And that would strengthen the left side of my upper back. That's kind of a nice one too. Okay, so let's reach the right hand to the belt above the right leg. So you're going to reach across. You're going to grab a hold of that belt with the right hand, and the elbow, right elbow is above the right leg, and lean down to the right side. But just don't go very far. So the farthest you go is be just above the leg, not trying to get on the inside of the leg. No, none of that. Maybe 10, 20 years ago, yes, but keep above. So you're not twisting and cranking your sacrum. You're just above the right leg. You can touch the leg with the elbow, but not trying to put your elbow on the floor. Okay, we've done that before, I'm sure. Let the left arm either reach back or up, and you can also let it stay on your back. This feels more peaceful for my back. And you could turn your head to look down to the right leg. See if you can coast into, well, you're kind of on the rib coastline here, aren't you? You can kind of feel a little bit of weather in this left side. So I like to feel my hand onto the ribs and feel the breath trying to move into the very middle rib space. You can always leave your arm behind you. Okay, so as you slide on that belt to come back up, we bring the right leg forward. And can you use your right hand, just the right hand, to hold on to it? I guess it's the arm too. And push into the foot and lift the leg up and try to get your chest to center and lift. This is the oddest strength piece, right? So it's a one arm pull. It's only a one leg lift, right? So may as well just give it one arm. But the left arm behind you can't really go back farther to stretch. Opposing reach just touches onto your back. Okay, now give it a few more moments until the hip flexor it's woke, right? The right hip flexor is up. It's what's up with the hip flexor, because it's up. Okay, lower the right leg, bend the knee and slide the belt off your foot, and then stretch the right leg back into pigeon. Okay, so we'll take the sand off the left side. Okay, take the ball away, and then move that right leg behind you. I like to have my blocks for my pigeon pose front, and the right leg goes back. Now, if this is not going to work for you today, there's a couple variations we can do. So here's the first option would be my hands are on the ground or my elbows are down, or I have my blocks under my elbows. I like this one too. Okay, if this is entirely not good on your knee just is responding, you don't have to bring your leg back at all. You could stay, but remember we're doing left hip. So you would sit on the bolster and bring your left foot up to that right knee, just like we kind of are doing, right, with the leg. It's just that this right thigh is not stretching. You could sit like this, leaning forward. You could sit on the ground in front of the bolster. You put your elbows on the bolster and stretch the hip this way. It's just that you're not putting force into it, right, when you're like that. It's a little forceful though, it's not nothing. So that's a modification today. And if you're here, hopefully your right hip flexor that was just awake can center. It might not be the biggest stretch on the hip flexor, but feel if you can stretch your torso forward by lifting your head a little bit and kind of wiggle your waist forward here. It's a non-seeing event. It's pretty small movement visual, but you're kind of squirming a little forward with your torso. Okay, now noticing just that sense of movement down to that left hip, whether you're sitting or you're leaning into it. Okay, hands press. Keep it simple as you lift up. Okay, and I want you to swing the right leg forward so you lean into the left leg. Come into cobbler pose, so Baddha Konasana, feet together, soles of the feet together. Okay, soles of the feet together, knees are out, and you want to have your hands so that they're holding onto the knees. Okay, so it's not favorable on this one to push them down. Well, for this today, this moment, this version. Okay, so my knees are a little buoyant. So I'm trying to push my feet together to activate the adductors. Okay, and notice if you can get your spine to go up. The arch in the back could be a little sensitive to the moment because you're trying to keep the knees a little lifted. You don't have to try to pull them up. I want you just to hold on to how their natural flexibility might be for you. So you can kind of see how the back is. So the idea is to go with where you're at, right? Just see where you're at with your mobility. And the stillness it can be a little frightening sometimes, just to kind of be with the balance of the shape. Take a few moments, not just take moments, but breathe and let the awareness of the breath be your moments here. Okay, now shoulders are kind of downwards. Okay, now let the ribs have a sense that they go forward, and then you'll stretch the left leg out. Bring the right foot in. You kind of know the drill on this side a little bit. So sand on right thigh, ball is under the right knee, belt to the left foot, let's get right into it. Belt goes around the back. And once it's behind you, you hold it with the right hand. This is the seated field, the part, what we're doing is seated field work. I think it's the most like mundane part of it, but it's pretty important for your back care. So when you turn to the right, it's part of the practice, right? Doing some seated field work in the body. So when you rotate to the right, left hand to right leg. Now maybe this side you're different with your stomach awareness, your muscles on this right side of the stomach. I mean, if I spend some energy scanning and feeling and comparing, there are differences. Okay, so your work is on how to coordinate that inner landscape so the breath is helping you become more spacious, right, with the insides. You can flex your left foot, you could relax it, that's okay. You don't have to make things more difficult if that's too much. And some of us might like to use the left hand to push into the right leg and to twist. Okay, now keep a hold of the belt. Reach the left hand now to the left side on the upper left leg, hold the belt. And then you can let go of the belt with the right hand, bend the left elbow. This might be a re-education for you. You may have been taught for so long to put your elbow on the floor, and there's nothing to say you can't do that. It's your practice. But just keep it simple with the streams of movement in your back, and just notice what would be sensible, not what would look good, but what would be sensible for movement inside yourself. So when you lean down, even if I put my elbow on the outside of my left leg, I can feel my inside kind of slipping strength in my spine. So use that left arm to pull, really tug on the belt. And the right arm could be up. Some of you like to swing it towards the left side at the side of your face. Some let the arm go behind you and rest it. Turn your head to the left leg. But breathe. Now we're starting to warm up the left leg for what's ahead here. So pull with the left arm, bicep curl. Okay, good work. So the side gets quite a stretch on the right. Now, the side might lose some of this value when you come up. So feel the breath in the side. You can touch the side with the right hand, or just actually feel the massive expansion. And then pull. So I have to slide my hand on the belt so I actually can get upright, but I still want to feel this reach of the arm. So when I move my leg forward, yeah, I kind of seize up on my right side a little bit, tiny bit, but my left side, that's okay. You want to keep the strength here. So if you tend to really contract a lot, because this is going to pull in the front of the left side, you might just get a hold of the left side of the waist and see if you can keep that lifting. It's not like it's going to go up the whole floor inside the body, like an elevator like going up, but it's a visualization I find can be helpful to keep myself at least doing it. Do the practice. Okay, sand should be helping you stay supported here. And now bend the left leg, lower the foot, keep a bend of the knee, and then slide the belt off. Try to stay with that left knee bending. So it's not like a full bend angle all the way up, but it's slight. Sand away, and then right leg down and left leg stays with the bend. And then you're stretching that thigh back so the front of the thigh reaches. And then we reach the right knee open. Okay, so if you're not doing this version, when you lower down or your hands are on lifted up on the blocks, elbows positioned. If you're not here, where are you? You're seated with the right leg up on the left leg. You're seated and you're leaning forwards. I find this one's easier, this version for me on my elbows with my knee out and just kind of in this kind of hanging out position. I think this is a good version. Yeah, it's an excellent pose to do when you're in a chair where you have room in front of you and around you to stretch out your hip and to get some stability in the pelvic floor. So this does charge into the adductors. So feel when the top of the back thigh is down for those of us in this version, and kind of meld where the spine is in charge here. Your lower back is kind of charging because you know what's coming up. We're going to go to the wall. So, and that's such good work, right? When we can use the wall for as a prop for support. So feel when the arch is angling through your back muscles. Those of you that are down for the last few moments might work on letting the left leg be heavy and the brain shift down. Now, when you do come out, let's go forward with the legs. Okay, so left leg goes forward as well as the right is already there. And shake it out. See if you can just shake them out. Maybe do a little bit of supplement. I would let the hands be more of a kind of a slap versus a fist. On the top of the thighs and around to the sides. This is where the fist is a little better, upper outer leg. Okay, and all the way down. Okay, so let's bend and let's bend. Half of you are there, but not the other half of the group today. Okay, move the bolster away and then let's turn ourselves towards a wall spot. We'll do just a brief little set at the wall. Well, actually, the rest of the class is going to be at the wall, so maybe that's not true. All right, so get to a wall space, have your blanket in a quarter fold and place it. I don't think you'll need two blankets, but let's see. Let's see. So we'll go blanket. Yeah, we'll just do that one blanket. Okay, that'll be for my last pose. So have a couple blocks, put them on the sides of the mat. So they're not going to be in distraction to start. You'll have it on the sides. And then when you place the palms to stretch, I want you to work on that reach of the feet at the wall. So my heel is not pushing into the wall, but yours might. It just kind of depends on how you stretch your foot here. So if I curl the toes under and stretch my foot, this is so good. If you've ever done that kneeling pose where you stretch your feet, this is so much easier to do it this way. So lengthen out your back, touch down with your forehead on the ground. Okay, get a feel of the movement of the hips. Okay, now as you move your head up and forward over the hands, stretch the hips down and lengthen the torso. Be cautious in your back here. So for some of us, this might be too much back pressure. So if you're doing this pattern and you go, that just feels too much, but I like the stretch, you might put a blanket in front of your hips. Okay, that's where that could come in. So we'll do this about 8 times. So you are going to be repeating. So if you go, oh, that's too much on my back, keep going with it, alternate. You could take a blanket, it could be rolled up. This would be an easier option. And then it seems like it's not very much, but it actually is helpful. So I don't feel as much pressure. So do that if it feels helpful, because we've got at least 5 more, huh? Maybe you've already done 5. But go slow, take a few more moments and feel the movement of your neck stretching both directions, flexing and arching. Yeah, so feel when your head moves down, your hips reach back. Not so much a focus of the touchdown of your head or your hips, but the movement in between both of these ends of the pose. So the movement in between is probably 100% more important, isn't it? Because you lose yourself into getting to the end of the pose usually. Okay, last time, or I get lost, maybe it's not you. Okay, feel where the hips reach. Now there's always further to go, especially on this one with the hip flexors. Okay, so let's try the lunge. So we'll lean back to table. We'll take if you have your blanket, move it away. You'll take a block set so they're high height. They're up as high as they'll go. And then move the knees to touching, but the thighs to touch. You feel kind of neutral spine here. It's not so much rounded, it's not arching, it's pretty nuded. Okay, step the right foot forward. So now everything starts happening in the hips. Okay, this is so good for our hips. So take the lunge and you choose if you're gonna lift your knee right away. If you're like, I love the knee on the blanket, this is so great for my hip. Okay. If it doesn't feel so great for other things, I would just get the lift of the leg and start to sort out how your heel is at the wall. Your heel should be at the wall, not on the floor. So it could be kind of up for some of us. It could be a little bit lower, but feel that right leg stretch forward. Feel the arch right through the spine. Doesn't have to be anything more to celebrate than that. Okay. Now, if the energy is kind of stifled on the inside of the leg, notice what part of your right leg is not getting any blood flow. There's probably somewhere that you kind of push more on the inside, you jam up. If your knee is still on the blanket, it should come up so you can distribute your body weight. And then I want you to actually get the back foot down. So you're going to slide your right foot back a little bit. So this foot has to go back. You're going to pivot the left foot to turn out. Just give it a moment. It's not forever. It's an ankle stretch. It's a rotation. You don't have to sink into it with your thighs. Keep the knees pretty comfy. This is interesting on the back knee. If you kind of notice, to be careful with it and to work the strength around the knee too. Okay, now lift up the back heel. See, we stayed on the blocks. Now let the heel stretch down towards the floor, the back heel. This isn't a competition, but if you can get your back foot, maybe step it a little bit to the left, but still keep the foot, toes forward, parallel foot. Yeah, and this one, you might try to straighten the right leg. You might take the block lower it down 1 or 2 heights. I find using my fists on this one on the block a little lower is pretty good. You don't have to do any push-ups, but yeah, and try to get the hips level. They're probably a little cattywampus though. But see if you can levelize. Always further to go. Another day, another pose. A zillion breaths. Okay, now look down at your right foot, and whatever the foot looks like, you're trying to focus on structure. So it's in a forward motion, but you're plugging into the heel, stepping the left foot besides it, take a forward dive. So my blocks are out. I'm going to scoot my feet to about hips distance. And then I'm going to let my waist relax on my legs like a child's pose, but there's no knee harm at all. Knees are happy. They're not getting pushed on the ground. And then let your head lower down. If your blood pressure drops too fast on these, you would push into your blocks, you stretch forward. Okay, some of us, this one is better. Our blocks go up and we stretch forward. You can tell if that shifts too much. Some of us, the blood pressures, we're pretty competent with it for the most part. And some of us need the height. So our head lowers down. You can tell it affects your sinuses in a good way, right? It's flushing out, but you sound different when you do these forward bends. From head down, not from legs up, but head forward. Okay, you can hold the elbows, take another about half minute here. Let the spine really circulate and help the legs stretch. Be sure you get that face circulation before you come out. So the skin cells of the face, you can almost feel that stretch of the skin of the face downwards. Or maybe it's really more backwards, because your face is not, it's angled during the day right now where it sloughs down. It's the other direction. This is a good one to do in the morning. If you're pretty stable, you can put your seat against the wall. So you don't, fall over when you're just getting up, but it's good to get that blood flow to the brain. Bend the knees, reach the blocks, take them next to you, with your feet, and then stretch that right foot back. And you don't have to get too worried about your leg spacing yet, but first feel, remember last time we started with the knee down, we're going to go backwards on this one. So we're going to start with the heel a little bit up. Some of you will have the heel lowering down right away, but my calf isn't ready for it yet. So I'm going to stay with it up for a few moments at the wall and see what happens when I propose movement into my left foot. Push back, so the thighs have to work, and then feel if you need to step your right foot a little bit to the right side, but still the foot is parallel, and stretch that heel back and down. Lengthen, torso. Oh, this can be challenging on many levels, but if you stay rather committed to breathing wide through the ribs, it can be helpful. Okay, turn the back foot out. So the right foot turns out to the back, the side, this side of your foot, the side of the foot should be against the wall as I topple over. Now your tush pushes back. It can't be under on this one. So don't try to harm that. But feel this funny expanse in your leg and your hip bone. And now we just put our bodies in these different angles and try to take as good care of it as we possibly can. Some days better than others. But if your hip swings out like it's turning, feel that position. Then feel your waist over the left leg and just noticing. Then let the body weight shift to the left leg. Lift the back heel, and now you're going to let the heel rest at the wall or lower the knee to the blanket. You might do a little of both. I like having my heel push into the wall, a little lift of the leg, step my left foot a little forward so my knee is not over my ankle at all. And then when I lower down the back leg, when my foot is against the wall, I tend to flatten this foot a little bit more than the other side. So I'm going to keep the curl in the bottom of my foot, the stretch. Yeah, so if you have like one foot, you've had anything, stress fractures, anything, this will come up, right? You'll notice one foot tends to flatten out, or the bones are just due to something different than the other side. I don't know, maybe you don't have any differences in your sides. It's just me. Thanks for joining me to talk about it. So when you stretch the thigh, you feel the movement of the left leg. Make sure your back knee is now down. Okay, and then shift your left foot back, step it back. All right, so as we started, right on this floor plan we have, stretch your hands forwards, bring your knees out, stretch your hips back. You don't have to do a child's pose, but if you like to, you could have your knees apart, your toes relaxed, sit back towards your heels, but you might go, nope, this is better for me. Hips are up, stretch the back. Take about 10, 15 seconds here. Okay, now as we're shifting here, I want you to lower your elbows to the ground. So you really feel this part of the arm pushing this direction. have them really wide. So they could be as wide as your mat. Not any wider, though, that would be just cruel, but you can feel that stretch of the side of the arms here. Okay, so we're gonna flip to do this on the other side. So you're going to come up to table, crawl your way, okay? Slide your blanket out as you lower down to your seat, and then unfold the blanket so you just have one big splat blanket at the back of you, not a big fold. And then let's put our bolster at the foot of the wall and put our feet on top, and we're gonna go with the arms again. Okay, don't wanna forget this arm thing. So I've got my head on my blanket, it's really low, take your time. Okay, so moments ago, elbows were pushing that way. Now, what you were probably pushing was more from the elbow down to the wrist. So now it's gonna be from elbow to shoulder. Okay, so now, how many nows can I say? Take a ball between the knees, or a block is perfect. Press down through the elbows, lift up the hips. Okay, now when you lift the hips, I want you to work on pushing down the elbows. Okay, then you inspire the rear muscles to tighten. And so there's a grip, and lower down the spine. Okay, make sure the ball is pretty snug, or the block. The block might be easier on this one because it's the visceral quality is a little more defined, huh? So push down. Now you have to really push into your feet. And then once you maximize that hip lift, you're there. You don't have to feel more focus on the thighs. You just stick it. But when you push your elbows down, lift up the ribs, right? There's a little rib lift. And the elbows might slide out, depending on what you're wearing. Sometimes it doesn't work too well on this one, but try to push them down. Stretch your arms now overhead. Don't let the hips sink. Okay, and now keep the arms overhead as your spine lowers down. Unless it hurts your arms, you can bring them down. Okay, now keep the arms overhead, push down into your feet, lift up the hips into drawbridge. So we're bridging. We call this bridging for a while. And then let the spine, feel the spine touch down. If you go too quick, you're missing out on the massage for the spinal column. So go one at a time. And take it another few times. If you want to alternate your arms up and down, so you're gonna be lifting when the hips go up and lowering. What I try to get on this is have you ever been stretched apart where like someone will pull your feet and kind of try to shuffle your body a little bit, get it stretched out. So getting your spine stretched is like really challenging. You don't really trust somebody to probably, it's not quite the same because it's so embedded in you. So your work on this one is to I like the arms to be overhead when I lower my spine. So I can feel my ribs moving with the breath and really feel the spinal touchdown. Just let it kind of drag it out, let it lower down. Okay, take one more time. This time, let's stay up. So we'll take a block. You can keep your ball between the knees if you find that that's, well, if you need 2 blocks and you have a block between, you've got to take it out. Huh? But the ball is, I think it's an interesting arrangement for every once in a while. So take your 2 blocks, strike them, warm them up, and then lift the hips up, and the blocks are at the second setting. They could be low if you want to stack them like this, you could do that. But I like them just next to each other, smack down in the middle, touch. They don't go above my ribs. They're not at my rib cage, right? They're just at the lumbar, and that's it. They're lumbars. My lumbars are at the lumbar. Okay, now I center. I don't think I like this ball, actually. It's a distraction. Now, if I push out, I'm going to stretch back and keep the frontal bones stretching open. Yeah, I absolutely love this pose. You could put sand here. It might be a little strenuous for some of us to add the sand and try to let that, but the hip flexors will certainly be reminded that they matter. And then let your elbows kind of squeeze into the sides. If it's tight for your chest to do that, it just feels awful. Then work on moving your elbows down, even though it's kind of insane to get that movement. It's tough. And then hands open. And these final few poses, I want you to bring awareness. There's only 3 after this, so it's not many. So each of them is a little bit of a hold. So feel if you can refine your movement into your back. Just let the back be lifted and breathe. If it's really too much with the blocks this high, you could go to 1 block flat under your sacrum. If the shoulders are starting to roll back out, yeah, it happens with aging, right? It's gonna start slumping. So try to work on that skin tone, the openness of the chest, hydration. You want the front area to be pretty plump and lifted. That's the key. It doesn't drop, it's up. Okay, now push the feet. I know some of you might not be pushing deep into the wall. It might be just a little touch, but see if you can push through the feet so it moves up into the muscles. Well, it actually just moves into the bones, but there are muscles over them. And then as you walk the feet, so you don't have to rest your pelvis before you bend the knees. I would say the opposite. You bend the knees, then push your feet, lift the hips, use your buttock muscles to get your hips to go up so you feel a grip in the glutes. Center. If your seat is trying to move together each side. Now lower the spine, blocks away. And reach your left foot down to the bolster on the left side and kick it over to the right side of your mat. Okay. Now right leg is down. If it jams into the wall, it's going to be okay because you'll bend your right knee and swing the left leg to the bolster. So you don't have to you don't want the right leg straight. It's not a good idea for your back to force that right leg straight because you end up twisting your lower back too much. So feel now when the leg is across, whether you need an extra blanket on it or not. Maybe if it's up, it's really high and you have the ball, you could put that under it, but the blanket's probably better, right? So use some cushion under it. So it's easy to center on it. Come on, sand, stay there. And then add a blanket height under your head and stretch out your arms. Turn your head to the left and rest your eyes back into the brain. We're pretty close to the brain. And just letting that inner laboratory reset. And feeling that fresh movement of breath on the left side. Sliding the sand. It's enjoyable for you to stretch your hip this direction. You might start to move the left knee kind of towards your right side, towards your arm. Just kind of feel that length of the hip. And then when you roll onto your back, you might windshield wiper the knees side to side. You might hug the knees to your chest. So you choose which feels just like the natural movement of your hip that is good for you. It might be knees in. It might be what feels best, and side to side or circle. Okay, so take a bolster, not a new one, the one you got over there, to the left. Scoot your seat to the right side. That's kind of works for me to move a little bit over so I have more kicking room. So I want to swing the right leg out of the back. Okay, so feel how you use your back. I think that may have been like, I thought I was, and you know what I didn't do last day was put my ball at the sacrum. Sometimes I remember these things. It's okay. Add your ball if you like. Add the sand if you like. But, you know, feeling that you stretch out of your back versus that you isolate just from the hip joint to the knee joint might help you get more range of motion. Not that that's the end game we're looking for. It's not necessarily where we need to go, but you could feel when you open out the chest that the back has a part. I mean, your real estate's pretty small, like how you're trying to get your range in these areas. So use it all what you can, and then feel when your head turns, how the ribs, some go left, some are trying to point right, but you are trying to get them to go left, but your neck is turning right. So you're massaging into the thyroid, the parathyroid glands on the side of the thyroid. And feel where there's weight into that left hip. I know you have weight on your right leg, but where the bottom leg bends and then all the way up into the side bones, into the hip. Now the range of breath is vast in a twist. It's especially a reclining twist. It's enjoyable. So when you slide the sand off on this right leg, you'll adjust you'll move it towards the wall if you can position it and push it. But you'll adjust your back muscles to go left. So roll left, bend both knees, and then push to come up just to sitting, right? Not any further. And then push your bolster next to the wall. Okay, now if you're a little worried about getting upside down, it's not very helpful, is it? You can use your blanket in lieu of the bolster. Like you could just have a blanket in a quarter fold here on the ground instead of the bolster. That make it just, you can do the same directions. It's easier. Okay. We're trying to get the pelvis up higher so that we're inverting. So that's why we're getting our hips up. Nice. We're trying to reverse the effects of gravity on the heart and the brain. So when we shift down to that side, I'm going to sit on the side of the bolster, right next to the wall. Bolster stuck right at the wall. Put my seat at the very edge. Okay, so this one, I find that, let's say you probably have one shoulder that's a little different than the other. It'll tend to roll into the shoulder that we can have more movement with. So if you have left shoulder's got more range, I would sit on the left hip. If your right shoulder has more range, you're going to sit on the right hip and start working that way. But both sides is probably smart too. So lean down with your upper body, shift down so your shoulder has to stretch to get here, and then swing the legs up. Try to swing them up, use the seat to the back, touching, and that uses your stomach muscles, right? So let's say you're doing some core work. You could be on your bolster like this. and go side to side. It's pretty good. And then as the legs go up, then we get our, where's that sandbag? Get your sand, put it on the core. Make sure your blankie feels comfy under your head right to your shoulders. And bend, scoop up the sand, make sure that it's oriented around your feet like you've got a little, kind of like when you put your eye pillow on, you kind of put it around to the sides and get just right. You've got an eye pillow, use it. That curtain of darkness is great for the mind. And then as you settle, the knees don't have to touch the wall, right? You don't have to jam up to the wall at all. If you add your blanket on the core, that might be nice, even if it's a mild weight. It's not a lot of weight, but it could be useful. If you had a weighted blanket, that would be really good too. Okay. Arms settle wide. You can let your elbows track open to support the movement of upper lobes. You can have your arms down so it relaxes the heart. That's what I prefer, is arms below the height of my heart. And then I focus on the diaphragmatic breath. The belly breath, so soft belly, that lift and lower. And adjust your blanket. If it just doesn't feel like it's enough support, you can make it higher. Just, I would be a little careful of that neck flexing. So let the weight of your head rest back so the jaw is relaxed. If you have jaw issue, tension, this pose might be a good one for you. And sometime you get a really small hand towel, roll it up and just slide it under, so that under your neck position, way below the occiput, right? So it would be around to the frame, the back of your ear, and hold. That might be nice for you to feel like you can surrender that jaw. This whole structure here from the jaw to the brain stem can be pretty locked for some. And suspend your focus here on breath. Moving, lifting and lowering. The practice soak into your bones. So feeling the breath in the body and the face relaxed. You might start to notice your heart rate at a certain point. If you connect in that deep level, you can feel that pulse without touching. So there's two different rates, right? You have your respiratory. So let your head nod from side to side. Bend the legs. Feel the legs draw back towards you so you can feel the thigh bones. If you have a blanket, it might be a little compromised, but it is a good massage into your digestive tract, I suppose. Keeps it moving. Okay, slide the sand away. If you like that knee side to side motion, you might do a few of those each side just to have the suspended lift of the pelvis, but it's supported. It's kind of both. Not like you're levitating, or maybe you want to pretend you are. Levitation pretend. Okay, now feel what side you would roll to, you could actually push towards the wall. Right, so I'm gonna roll towards the side, so I can push a little back to the wall. I learn how to get up from lying down. It's a daily exploration. Then sitting up so that your back is touching, well, at least your rear's touching. Maybe not, it's not all back. Okay. So you want to feel where there's those natural curves. There's an openness at the lower space of this back, and the hip balance is weighted into the thighs. I know, and there's the balance of the chest to be up. It's a challenge. Okay. So with that inner vibration of breath, feel if you can let your hands rest in your lap, palms open, whether they're on each leg or you're holding your hands so they're kind of holding space below the heart, but not pushing into the heart. Yeah, in a moment of that kind of emergence of centering, right, as we get to the shortest day of the year and the return of light to come. So center inside on the presence of that inner focus. Bring the hands together to meet below the heart. Inhaling, breathing in, and exhale, bowing into the space behind your